Welcome to week 37 of What Happens Next, where we interview experts and share insights on the third chapter of your life. And I'm doing this because I want to make sure that when we're thinking about the next chapter of our lives, typically when we're in our mid 50s to mid 60s and we're thinking about what's next, we think about it with a bit more nuance. And what I try to do is share some insights from individuals who have lived a life and have got some wisdom and expertise to share. My name is Chris Dames. I'm your host on this journey through transition, change, and the elements that we need to consider when we're thinking in our mid-50s to mid-60s about what happens next. And I'm really excited to share with you insights from Marc Eccles. Now, Marc is a business coach, but he shares a lot more than that in this interview. He shares his experience with music, being a singer in a band, and interestingly, we talk about the positive impact music can have in our lives and for our mental health. We talk about physical well-being and the importance of sport. We talk about where coaching can play such a positive part in people's lives. And we talk about transition and how Marc moved away from a job. Even though he ran the business, he effectively had a job, and moving away for a business that works for him. And how attending a funeral and reflecting on how quick life goes meant that Marc went through his own What Happens Next moment and changed careers. Now, interestingly, we talk about, for quite a cheerful channel and a cheerful podcast, we talk about death quite a lot on What Happens Next. And part of the reason is because remembering the fact that we've only got a limited amount of time on the planet, regardless of what your beliefs are, remembering we've only got a limited amount of time on the planet is key to making sure we take the right steps. Now, the reality with all of our interviews is there's going to be insights you want to learn from. So get a pen and paper, get your AI note taker, whatever way you want to take notes to get the insights we share on this interview, please do. And without further ado, let's move on to the interview with Marc. So at the minute, I'm spending a lot of time writing the What Happens Next book. I'm 50,000 words in as I speak to you today, and currently working to make sure that the book adds as much value as we can to people thinking about that next stage in their lives. Now, the book's not ready yet. It won't be out until sometime in 2025. I'm working hard to get it finished. But what you can do is sign up for the book waiting list, so you're one of the first people that gets access. You can simply do that by visiting whathappensnext.life/book. Join the waiting list today, and you'll be one of the first person to get access to the book and some extra goodies when it comes out. Hi there, and welcome to this What Happens Next interview. I'm really excited today because I've got on as a guest somebody I've got a lot of time and respect for, somebody who's added insight into my life, and somebody I'm sure is going to share insight into yours through this conversation. I am saying nothing today about his technological expertise, though. I'm sure that that's what we've got Teams for, right, Marc? To fix all that sort of stuff. But yeah, we're saying nothing about that. How are you today?
All good, all good. I'm sitting in a client's boardroom and I didn't have my number two alongside me. So to press a button to talk to you was very difficult, Chris.
My team would say the same thing, mate. I mean, I'm pretty useless without them. So it's good we've got them. Now, as I said, the What Happens Next format and the interview is helping people navigate change in their lives. Because as you know, we both work with clients who want to make positive change. Typically, the clients you work with across a wider age range compared to me, who tend to be come and speak to me later in life. But the themes are very similar. The themes are, I'm sort of stuck. I want to make sure that I'm a move in a positive direction. And what we want to do on What Happens Next is explore change, explore making positive change, and explore how we can help people by potentially thinking in a different way. So I know how much value you're going to add to that conversation, but perhaps some of our audience don't. So tell us a bit about you.
Okay. Cheers, Chris. So no pressure there. Then you think I'm going to add value? I'll do my best. So I started out life, if you like, as a kid, really into music and really into my rugby. So that's really where I come from. So I come from a musical family, a little bit like the Von Trapp family, I think. My dad is a great guitarist. Played all the pubs and clubs in the 60s, all that sort of stuff. I grew up, piano lessons, drums, you name it. So that's where my basis was. School didn't interest me in the slightest.
Yeah.
And so where my passion come from is, believe it or not, I was a bit rude to the physics and science teacher. So he kicked me out and told me to go and see the headmaster. And the headmaster was the PE teacher. And he said, I ain't got time for you now, boy. Get changed, you're coming out on the pitch. And he was training, doing a rugby session. And then I instantly fell in love with it. And because I fell in love with it, I got reasonably good at it.
Yeah.
So started an electrical apprenticeship with my dad because he owned an electrical company and it was easy. And I hated every second of it, but I was a lazy git that just wanted to play rugby and music. And it got to a point where the Monday club got a bit ridiculous because I was battered and bruised from rugby. And I knew I didn't like electrics, but because I trained in electrics and done my apprenticeship, I thought at that point, and this is a crazy thought when I look back, at the age of 19, my life is worthless if I don't see it through.
Right.
And when you look back at that, you think, hold on a minute, you've only just sort of
started.
You've only just started this journey, and you've already decided that it's over. But if you make a decision, so stupidly, I designed. I believed I couldn't work for anybody, so I created my first electrical company at the age of 19, and that's where my business journey started.
It's really interesting. Tell me how music continues to manifest in your life now. How does that play a part? Do you still play an instrument, or?
So, great question. I don't do as much as I should. First of all, from the positives. So, if I'm a great believer, and I'm all around mindset, and I do a lot around mindset. But for me, my go-to safe place is me in silence or me with music in my ears.
Yeah.
And it can be anything. And I can drift off with it, and I can just find my own space within it and find my happy place. So as an overview, I'm now, 56 next in a couple of months' time. Music is a really safe place for me. If I go back in time, and I can go back now just over 20 years ago, me starting an electrical business, running around as a subcontractor, working for all sorts of people, not having a clue about business, just being able to deliver electrical services, ended up with me being asked to come back 21 years ago into the family electrical business, becoming a shareholder, and the plan was for me to take it on and my dad to basically retire. Well, 3 months later, after I rejoined the firm, we got knocked for an absolutely shed load of money, and that's going to voluntary liquidation.
Right.
This has got a musical link to it, guys, so just bear with me on this one. But what I found really interesting is spending 7 days in hospital thinking, heart monitors and heart attacks and, it's all my fault. A 30-year-old business has gone down the swan and it's all down to me. It wasn't, in hindsight, it had nothing to do with me, nothing to do with the firm. It was just that we got knocked for a hell of a lot of money. 3 months in, Lisa said to me, "Why don't you start doing a bit more around music?" And back in the day, then when there was newspapers and stuff, there was the old Melody Maker, and I was coming back on the bus from Barking train station, and I bought the Melody Maker. And I was looking through it, and there was an audition to be a singer of a band. Now, in all the years that I've played in music and drums and all the rest of it, I used to do a bit of backing vocals, and I thought, do you know what? I might go and give it a go.
Right.
So I auditioned, walked into this village hall in Alsip, which is where I now live, which is weird because I've never been to Alsip before. And the guy said, "Thanks for coming, just waiting for the guitarist and we'll get started. What do you know?" And I said, "Not a lot. What do you do?" And he gave me a list. And I started busily trying to remember words to certain songs. And then 2 minutes later, my uncle walked in as the guitarist.
Really? You didn't know?
And the rest is history, basically. He said to me, "You're a drummer. What are you doing here?" And I said, "I thought I'd give it a go." And then officially went down the pub for them to have a reminisce to see if I was good enough. And I don't think anybody else auditioned, so I got the job.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you still play with them now, or how long did that?
I stopped with them just before COVID, so nigh on 17, 18 years. So in a live band, doing between 10 and 50 gigs every year.
Yeah, love it. And you're right about music. You know, that element of music, and there's been loads of experiments on the impact of music on our brains. And it lights up part of our brains that nothing else gets to. Do you know what I mean? And it's that power of just sort of being able to create and then like be inspired by or relax to music that I absolutely love.
There's a lot in there, Chris. Sorry, there's a load of work being done now with the Alzheimer's Society around how music can assist and help and guide somebody through treatment.
Yeah.
And one of my very good friends, he literally goes into elderly homes and plays certain types of music to re-engage and get their brains going. It's a phenomenal thing going on.
I mean, the interesting thing there is that how certain music sparks nostalgia. It certainly does for me. Like you play a 90s Ibiza tune for me, and I imagine myself being there in the early 90s. You know, it's just that link. Dancing as badly as I do now, to be honest, Mark. It's not my dancing's not improved. I think the other interesting thing you said at the start was that identity thing, because a lot of the clients that we work with who are thinking about what happens next are successful in what they do. They've built wealth, they've done well, but the struggles sometimes is, I'm Chris, I'm this, I'm a managing director, I'm a head of R&D at a big motor company, I'm this. How did you navigate the fact that your identity isn't you?
Interestingly, so I learned a lot about my identity playing rugby, and I was playing as a schoolboy sort of rugby player, and I was the guy, you know, for me to be fronting a band, going back to the music, was crazy. I was never the front man. Yeah. I was always the bloke at the back playing the drums, and I was happy to be there. And I was happy to keep.
Was that your role on the rugby pitch as well?
Well, that's interesting because it was. And my role on the pitch originally was packing down, keeping the ball moving, keeping hold of the ball. But then my identity shifted in the changing room. And that identity shift was somebody needed to grab hold of this. Someone needed to let people know that we was going to win or lose this game before we even walked out on the pitch.
Yeah.
So that's where I started to really invest time in understanding who do I need to be? What does my identity? What do I need to work on around my identity to be that person?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
So that was the start of that journey. And to be honest, reflecting on it now is probably me realising for the first time that has probably helped me in so many different areas of my life. Amazingly.
Yeah. It's interesting how physical well-being and sport connects to for me, and I'm not that much of a team sport player, but part of the way that physical well-being fits in to me is to prove to myself what I'm capable of.
Yeah.
So when I sort of, go out for a run and run a long distance, or go out for a bike ride and do a decent, I was like, I did that, and I've proven to myself that actually that threshold of not thinking that was possible is then breached. So what's next in all aspects of our life? I think it's really interesting. But I suppose the interesting thing about the work side is that you went through that transition, didn't you? You changed from a MD of an electrical business to a business coach and running a coaching business. Talk to me about that transition, and because you've had your own what happens next moment and gone through it. So what did you learn through that journey?
Yeah, a couple of times over as well. But so first of all then, so I was that busy fool. I was the guy on that roller coaster of business, working 80, 90 hours a week. And to be honest, someone said, why did you do that? And the honest answer back then is because I didn't know anything different. That was step one. Step one was when you've got a job, and I like to call a job a job, just over broke. We're doing okay, and that's at all different levels, of people's income. Everything is relied upon that job. So on the outside, people saw that I had an electrical business and I had a team of people and loads of stuff going on, and he's doing all right. But I didn't have a business, I had a job. Because if I didn't turn up, nothing happened. Yeah. And if nothing happened, I wasn't able to put a can of beans in the cupboard at the end of the week. So my first identity shift was me actually understanding that, hold on a minute, I haven't got a business. Yes, you have. No, I haven't. Yes, you have. No, I haven't. All of that sort of stuff. So what do I need to do to turn this into a business? Now, as you know, Chris, I work with Action Coach, global organisation, and their version is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. Now, the first time I heard that statement, it was, I love what I do. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to let someone else do this without me. So it was all about, hold on a minute, for this to be a real business, I've got to be able to choose whether I have to do it or not.
Yeah.
I should be able to have the freedom of choice, so that if I want to do it, I can. But if I also want to go and sit on a park bench for 3 days and just look at the sky, I can also do that.
And that's what it comes down to. When we talk to clients about financial independence, it's not about giving up work. It's about freedom of choice. And if you've got the choice and you love what you do and you want to carry on, great. If you don't, you're not forced to, and that's the factor that was important. How long did it take you to get to that realization? How long did you have those two voices?
I got invited to a network meeting, which was literally the guy that invited me was the keyboard player in the band and also my printer, Dave. And he said, Mark, we're organising this networking meeting. Do you want to come along? I didn't have a clue what he was talking about. And the only reason why I went is because a good mate that I've, lived and breathed with, drive up and down the motorways and playing in bands, asked me to be there, that I turned up. Yeah. And I sat next to this guy who said he was a business coach. And I was like, oh, right, fair enough. And the only word that stuck in my head was coach, because I've been coached around rugby for many years. Yeah. And the only reason why I joined that networking group is because there was 4 other electrical companies and all 4 said, can we join? So I text Dave under the table while the meeting was going on and said, put my name down, I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they to kick out, if you like, the competition. So that was the start of me meeting a business coach. And a couple of months in, he said to me, do you really know what I do? I went, no bloody clue, mate. To me, you're just a miserable South African. And he really, really was. He became one of my best mates. But at the start, it was very difficult communicating. So he sat with me, went through my business from a business perspective, not a job perspective, And for the first time, I thought, if I can work on those areas, I could have some choice back.
Yeah.
It was nothing about money, Chris, nothing about money whatsoever. And, all the different people that I work with, anything from a one-man band sort of hairdresser up to £800 million recruitment company and everything in
Yeah.
between. And it was nothing about the money. It was all about choice. It was all about, do you realise that you're working 90 hours a week just because you've designed it that way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, holy schmoly, really?
Yeah.
So that identity shift for me to become a business owner, for me to start working on the business and also working on myself, which is all the stuff that I brought from the rugby pitch and yesteryear, that all started to come together. And then over a period of time, my coach helped me get out of my own way. The business started to take off, the right people, right systems, right processes with all the right support. And then I went from 90 hours a week down to 1 hour a week.
Yeah.
And going back to what some of this audience may be going through or thinking about going through, that next phase was the hardest part that I've ever done in my life. I'd rather go and fight two lions at once at London Zoo. And that next step was, nobody loves me anymore and nobody wants me anymore. And I've got all this space and I've got to fill it with something.
Yeah.
And that bit was critical. That bit, understanding that bit was critical.
It's interesting because we assume that freedom of time and building that time is what we're aiming to achieve. And we talk about financial independence a lot, but without purpose, it's a bit empty, isn't it? So what was the next step on that journey where you sort of rediscovered a bit of purpose?
So what helped me to understand that next step, believe it or not, was attending a funeral. And I went to a funeral that wasn't religious in any way. And there was a guy at the front that just spoke this poem beautifully. And it wasn't the date that you enter the world, and it's not the date that you leave the world, it's the dash in between.
Yeah.
And it really got me. Hold on a minute. I've got this gift. I've actually got time on my hands right now. What do I need to do for this to fulfill me and to be of purpose to me and to people around me?
Yeah.
And I phoned up my coach, Ken, and went, I'm going to become a coach. It was fantastic. And literally, it was that moment. If I've gone through all this, I've got at that point, I started business when I was 19, and this was now nearly 15 years ago. So give or take 25 years or so of being in business, 20 odd years of being in business. And I just thought, what can I do to make a difference so nobody has to go on that roller coaster ride, doing all the hours under the sun? Let me put something in place to make sure that as long as they're prepared to listen, I can help them change. And I wake up every day now, and to be honest, and I'm going through the next phase, and I know me and you spoke about this, my action coach business isn't now about Mark just helping a few people. It's now multiple coaches, multiple people, teams, processes. And I've now got to the next step that I've now got to work that system and process and people so that I can start getting my life back again, because I've fallen back into that trap.
Yeah. but like that balance, I actually think we need a bit of challenge in our life to make sure that we're in a position where we've got that push-pull. But what you said was really interesting because I think the game changes when you start to get older. So I'm 46.
Yeah.
I said to Catsy the other day, if we just carried on doing what we're doing, we'd be all right. You know, financially, the game's not about the money anymore for me because we know we're going to be okay. And I was thinking the other day, if it's not about that, what's it about? And I think I said to you before, and I don't know if I've told you this bit, I said to you before, I'm journaling at the minute. I've started to journal every morning and every night and reviewing it and stuff like that, about sort of looking at my own life, my own habits, and seeing how I can improve it. And the question that I put in my journal in the morning is, what positive impact are you going to have today? And that question for me is replaced. We've got business goals, we want to grow it, but that's more about the positive impact. But what happens next is about adding value. And look, it will result in commercial wins, because I believe that if you do good stuff to the world, it all comes back to you. But the positive impact is the values driver for me. How are we doing good? It's really important. And it is to you as well, right?
It really is. And also, it's how you dress that up as well. So that works for you, Chris. So Brad Sugar's the guy that created all the action coach stuff 30 odd years ago. I mean, he was a multi-millionaire at the age of 25. Now, if you don't get really clear on your purpose and you get really clear on what you want out of your life could go really upside down. 25 years old and, multi-millionaire. I've got a few clients in that position right now. And I spend more time just helping and if you like, holding them back to really think about why are they here, But one question that Brad always asks himself every day, and I've heard him being asked this question so many times, Brad, what keeps you going every day? He said, I get up every morning, I go through my rituals, I walk into the bathroom, I look in the mirror, and on my mirror it says, is this as good as it gets? And he always says, no, what am I going to do differently today then to make it better? And that comes from a place of, we're talking about change today, and we see it as a formula and as coaches. And the formula is dissatisfaction times vision, in brackets, plus first steps has got to be greater than any resistance. Now, some people stay just in front of being dissatisfied, which gives them the energy to keep going. And some people are visionaries. So if you're setting self-visionary targets and goals and purpose, but you're someone that just works away from being dissatisfied, it's never going to work for you, and vice versa. So finding the right steps for you to move forward is the critical path.
Yeah, I love that. So we're talking about a business that works without you. Okay. What does that mean in practice? If we've got somebody, funny enough, I had a client of mine who came into me yesterday who not for me to say, but I'd suggest to him that he's thinking about selling his business, but it's too reliant on him. How does he work out? If this is the first time you've listened to What Happens Next, welcome to the show. We are committed to making sure that we do as much as we can to help you navigate whatever's next in your life. And there's a home for What Happens Next, whathappensnext.life. We'd love for you to visit the site. On it, you will see loads of interviews, a link to take the What Happens Next quiz, an opportunity to sign up to the waiting list for the book, and much, much more. Take a look on the visit site, and we'd love to know what you think. Whether he's got a job or a business that works without him, and what are the steps from one to the other?
Okay, so without getting into too much detail, and I'll gladly, for any listener, if they want a sort of get together over a coffee and a full detail on their business, I'll be more than happy to do all that for free. But outside of that, the way I visualize it and I share it with people when they're thinking about the concept is, if you can imagine that you're sitting in a car and you're looking at your windscreen. Now, this car isn't no normal car. It's your vehicle of success. It's the vehicle that's going to give you everything that you want in your life financially. And the reason why you're in it is because this is a vehicle that you've created. Now, like every vehicle, there's a big windscreen. And there's a reason why there's a big windscreen. And that's because you should be looking out of it on a regular basis and see where you're going. And, the failure rate in business is so bad because most people don't take time to sit in the driver's seat and go, where am I going? Yeah. They're just working and working. So step one is where are we going? What does it look like? End in mind thinking, Stephen Covey stuff. Next step, sit in that seat, even if it's for half an hour a week, and look in the rearview mirror and say, what have I learned? What stuff have I failed? What stuff can I bring with me so I don't go and do it all again? The amount of clients that literally walk into the same brick wall every year.
Yeah.
You know, a great question to ask yourself is when I've been in business for 22 years or whatever, have you been in business for 22 years or have you done the same stuff every year for 22 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
So once you're sitting in that seat and you can start doing that bit, you start to take control. To get into that seat took me 2 years with a coach to actually help me get away from the coalface. Next step, you've got 4 wheels. You've got a marketing wheel, you've got a sales wheel, operations and finance. If you're very much part of and in them wheels, spinning that wheel, you've got a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the first step is to how do I get processes, systems, and people in place so all them 4 wheels run at the right speed, at the right time, in the right way, so I can sit in my driver's seat and look at the dashboard and make decisions around what's going on from those 4 wheels.
Let me ask you a question on this, and this I'm asking for a friend, and it might be a bit for me. How do you get rid of the bits you love, or should you?
It all depends if the bits you love are getting in the way of your purpose, desire, or your true goals.
Interesting.
So if you look at the bits that you love, might be keeping you in a denial place.
Yeah.
You know, if I love going down the pub with my dad on a Friday night and having 47 pints of Guinness and an Indian on the way home, it might not do it might be great because I love doing it, but might not be helping my health.
Yeah.
And so first of all, getting clarity on is this activity getting me to where I need to be for me and for my family and the people around me.
Yeah, it's that. Does it make the boat go faster and stuff that I absolutely love? You know, is it getting me to, even though I enjoy it, is it getting me to that place that I get to is 100% absolutely key. And I suppose all of this comes to the way that we see the world, the way that the stories we tell ourselves and our mindset.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's that, as you know, I'm a fan of Stoicism, and I think about the world through that Stoic lens quite a lot. And one of the things about Stoicism is that all life is the stories we tell ourselves, right? How do we get to a point where we're thinking about life in a different way that allows us to not get trapped in the things we're doing currently?
I've just come from a coaching session with a client, and they've just gone through 2 years of, the only way I can explain it is complete hell. Being knocked for money, chasing debts, you name it. He's done amazing to keep all the plates spinning and to move forward. And the conversation we're having today, which is great, because he's managed to work his way through that, the next phase is profit, getting back on his feet, going in the right direction. And we've set a profit goal. And the profit goal means he's got to do all sorts of stuff. But to do all that sort of stuff, he's got to be a different person. He's had a survival mindset for two years-ish, okay? If you take a survival mindset into a growth place, all you're going to do is turn it into a survival place. Yeah. And the results will only be a survival result.
Yeah.
So it's how we then switch that mindset from survival, in this instance, from survival mindset to growth mindset. Comes back to what we say. Who do we need to be? You know, Jim Rohn always said, or my version of Jim Rohn, is there's 9 billion people out there. You can go and work on every one of them if you want, or you can just work on yourself. The choice is yours.
Yeah.
So first of all, working on yourself and understanding the question around, are you a body with a mind or are you a mind with a body? We could spend the next 27 days talking about that. But I totally believe.
Well, we could do it in the pub when you're drinking your 49 pints of Guinness. I mean, I don't know how you're going to fit that in on a Friday night, to be honest, Mark. I mean, that would take.
Yeah, but getting the be right so you can do right is critical.
Yeah.
And how do you support your be? And I always, for me, when I take it to a logical place, I always use the book Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning, where the word savors, what's going on in silence, affirmations, what you're telling yourself, the visualization, the verbalization, exercise, nutrition, water, sleep, the learning, the reading, the understanding, and the scribing is a really good place if you to start building that into your day of you identifying who you are right now and then looking at yourself and having the time to look at yourself to start working out on who you need to be.
Yeah. Curious. So when you were at that point where the electrical business was done, you were down to like an hour a week.
Yeah.
Where was your head then? Was it in thrive or survive? And what were you thinking in terms of?
I think I had a 30-second moment of wow. And I pinched myself. How the hell did this happen? Do I deserve it? And then that process went straight from deserve it to self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Straight away went literally 30 seconds of fame, self-sabotage.
Yeah.
And the self-sabotage then every second of every moment of every day started beating the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And funny enough, when I've done the whole journey with Action Coach, once I started to, my coach said to me, "You're going to be a great coach, but you need to be a world-class coach, not just a great coach. What does a world-class coach look like? What does a world-class?" And he constantly, battered me to death with that, building my affirmations and getting my silence around, driving to become a world-class coach. So I started telling myself I'm a world-class coach. Now, once I started to make a difference, and we get tracked on all sorts of information in Action Coach to make sure we're doing a good job, once I started to get above the crowd a little bit, everybody started going, "Oh, he's a good bloke. Let's go have a chat with him."
Yeah.
Guess what happened again? Self-sabotage. I don't deserve to be here.
Yeah.
And then working on that self-sabotage for the last 10 years, and I've been very open about this. I've managed to sort my finances out. I've managed to sort my mindset out around business and logic and emotions. The one bit that I have let get away with myself is my own health. And my own health, I'm sitting 5 stone overweight as we speak today. And it's, if you like, it's the last part of the jigsaw puzzle that really needs to be worked on. But it's my go-to place when that last sort of doubt or the self-sabotage kicks in, and it's a lot easier to eat a donut, a Mars bar, than it is to go for a run or whatever,
But I think the first step is being aware of it, isn't it? And saying like not pretending it doesn't exist. And I think the interesting thing, and I'd be curious about your perspective on this, is it's all like it's a lifelong journey, that journey of growth and development. And we never ever stop making sure that we're continuing to work on ourselves and work. And I mean, you can choose not to. Clearly, that's a choice as well. But interestingly, my experience is, getting help is often the key, isn't it? And it's why we're sort of loving speaking to loads of experts on what happens next, because just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're good at everything, and getting the right support in particular areas is fundamentally important. Really interesting. We interviewed somebody about physical well-being for What Happens Next, and his thing was a go after a goal, because I'm very much like, I'll train for something physically and then I'll still carry on training, but not as well. And he said, "Right, what's the next bit?" So like just doing a goal and then a goal, and I quite like that.
So, sorry, if I can just add to that, Chris. So that piece of advice, and because you're quite a visionary and your job is all about making sure that everyone's okay 5, 10, 15 years from now, so you're the ideal person to do what you do, so that advice for you in Formula for Change is the right advice because you're looking at the next step.
Yeah,
But if you're somebody that has got to find £30,000 by tomorrow morning,
true.
otherwise lose the business, the only
You
thing
need
they're
to do
focused
today.
on is now.
And there is an argument to say that happiness is today.
Yes.
So being too forward thinking means that you don't appreciate what you've got. And it's really interesting when I'm writing the What Happens Next book at the minute and I'm doing the journaling, to just one of my things that I do in my journal every morning is just 3 things I'm grateful for. And I know I'm lucky. Every day, but just writing those 3 things down certainly helps and helps me move forward. So we're talking about change today. You've worked with a lot of people who are going through certain change in their lives and their businesses, as have I. What are your top 3 tips for managing change?
I think one comes from Richard Branson. A lot of people see Branson as a massive visionary type guy, and having an audience with Richard Branson and his number one top tip, he calls it the 70-20-10 rule. And he said, when I ask people this question, where do you think I spend 70% of my time? Is it in the now? Is it in the past? Or is it in the future? Everybody I talk to says you spend your time in the future thinking where we're going. And he said, the reality for me to be a forward-thinking future person is I've learned at an early age to spend 70% of my time being present.
Yeah.
He said, and that for me was the number one learning because I come from a place where I was in a survival mindset, working all those hours, 90 hours a week. And there's no exaggeration there, guys. I was working 90 hours a week. I worked every day, no matter, without fail. But the realization that I wasn't being present, I was always saying to anybody around me, the old only fools and horses, this time next year, Rodney, we're going to be millionaires. But next year was never going to come.
Yeah.
So getting the 70-20-10 rule, and if you're a visionary person, 70% of your time, 20% of your time goes to the future, 10% of your time goes to the past, so you don't have to keep relearning. And if you're someone who's working away from dissatisfaction, 20% focus on the past, 10% on the future, 7% on the now. So that's probably one key learning about being present. And I think the other one key one is the old James Clear atomic habit stuff, is identifying that you are the problem in your life and you're also the solution, and how you feel it, how you feel the time is down to you.
Yeah.
And learning to build those habits that suit you, suit your passions and everything else to move forward. And the last thing I would say is the only failure in life is a failure to participate. So are you participating in your life? And that's a key one, participation in your own life.
Yeah.
And for the guys on here that are thinking, I love what I do, so I'm going to keep doing it. Is that coming from a true place, or is that coming from a denial place because you just don't really know what you should be doing differently?
Do you know what? I think sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's that element of going, well, I know this. I know that I run this successful business, or I know that I'm respected in my field. If I step outside of that, even though I think fear and frustration are those 2 emotions often, and it's that element where we're frustrated about where we are, but it's comfortable, and that fear is like, well, I know this is a bit of a pain, but that's unknown. And
Yes.
those two measures are like a pull and a push. And I think, interestingly, when it's often when, and as you know, we work with a wide range of clients, but for those clients who are thinking about what happens next, it's when the pull gets greater than the push.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm definitely not doing that for the next 10 years. So I need to think about next change. So atomic habits is number 2. What's your third one?
I think it probably comes to mind because it's a book that we just read together, The Compound Effect. But most people are having these thoughts in the, if you like, the second or third phase part of their life. And I think if you've been on that 40-year plan, so we're born, we go through school, some of us get out at 16, 18, and some get out at 23, 25. But the age of 25 to 65, according to the world, whatever that means, we go work, come on, go work, come on, go work, come on, go work, come on. And we're supposed to do that for 40 years to put a can of beans in the cupboard, make sure the lights come on in the street and everyone's happy, paying our taxes and everything else. Now, from a business owner's perspective, we should be focused on a 2 to 5 year plan, because if we work on the right stuff in a compound way over 2 to 5 years, you'll be in a place of complete freedom of choice.
Yeah.
Now, if we're sitting there at 35, 38, 42, 48, 52, 65 years old, whatever our ages are, is our thought process because we've been on the hamster wheel every day. So that's it. Because we are a creature of habit, going back to the atomic habit stuff. So I would, and I think you know what I'm going to say next. One of the biggest books that had a massive change in my life, and I've read it every year since, is 7 Strategies for Wealth and Happiness, Jim Rohn. And it asks you 6 key questions in there. And if you can answer them honestly and look in the mirror and agree with yourself, it will shift your identity. It will shift and help you year on year understand why you're on the planet. And it's nothing to do with that 40-year plan and the decisions that you made yesteryear. So them 3 key areas, I mean, there's probably 3 books in there that I've just shared, but I would say from the Branson point of view, be present and always participate in your life and others. The amount of people that say to me, I always have dinner with my kids every night. I said, yeah, but do you? Or are you doing this?
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. So 70% time present. Atomic habits, getting really clear on filling the right spaces in the right way to do the right stuff. And if I was going to use the Jim Rohn book, 7 Strategies, getting really clear on asking yourself the right questions so that you know that you're not blaming, I'm going to do this forever because this is all I know, or I want to be an expert and I want people to love me, or you're just in denial because you just don't know what else to do. So stretch your imagination and your mind and educate yourself in a different way so that you can ask yourself those difficult questions, or go and get a coach and get them to do the same, just to make sure that when you get to the end of your day, there's people not standing around the hole looking at the stone and it says, Marc Eccles, the nearly man.
Yeah.
That doesn't interest me at all. So that's why I constantly fight for my clients and fight for what I do. I don't know if I've answered the question.
I think that's really interesting. Loads of great books, and we'll make sure we put those in the show notes and the videos and stuff like that, so everybody can get links to what they need to. I did that Jim Rohn exercise earlier in the year, thinking this is good. I'm quite good at this sort of stuff. I'm like, I know I need to develop and change and stuff like that. And I shouldn't have started it while I was on my way out to a Burns night supper, to be honest, because I was sitting with my dad at a jazz club in Canary Wharf, going, "Who am I? What do I want?" So probably do it in a darkened room with the curtains closed when you've got some time to think instead of when you're going out with your dad. But the interesting thing for me is I didn't find that exercise particularly easy. But definitely worthwhile because it clarifies certain bits and then makes you question certain bits. One thing I often find is I've got clients who never going to run out of money again. So the financial well-being or the financial questions answered, but still continue to work because. And I suppose there's a bit of a challenge here as well. Is it because that's what they've always been used to, so they've gone back to the norm, or actually they enjoy the thing that work brings them? If people achieve their goals and have got freedom of time, what role do you think work plays in people's lives?
What role? What? Sorry, last bit.
What does work or business play in people's lives?
I'm getting sort of 2 or 3 different sort of possibility answers there, but I think first of all, some of the key reasons why we keep doing what we're doing is the reasons why we set goals in the first place. We want a pat on the back. We want that fulfillment, that achievement. A bit of ego, whatever it might be. And if we've worked our socks off throughout a period of our time and we're now in that position, we may be using that stuff to keep us there.
Yeah.
So it's working harder on yourself to make sure keeps coming back to that. The word that just keeps coming back into my head is denial all the time.
Yeah.
And we spend, so much time in that space because we're in that comfort zone. And being human should be uncomfortable. If we go back to caveman days, and the wife says you've got to go out and bash another dinosaur over the head, you're not looking forward to that because you're that big and the dinosaur's that big. Yeah. But you do know that if you bash it over the head and you can eat for the next 3 months, you're going to do your job. And I think we get to a stage when we get that success and we get the finances behind us and blah, 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 that we don't have to bash any more dinosaurs. So I'm just going to stay in a little comfort bubble and get a pat on the back, and people say he's really good at what he does and all that sort of stuff, and I'm okay. But okay, you've heard the saying, life's like a tree, you're either growing or you're dying. Okay isn't okay.
Yeah. It's that continued growth, isn't it? So work might play a part in that, right? But if we're going back to what we've always done, that it's whether you're doing it through comfort or doing that through an attitude of growth. So I think that's really interesting.
Sorry, Chris, I'll just add one more thing there is, so if you look at the coaching side of my life, I started off with being a coach, asked my daughter to come in and support me and help me. We then took that, got it to a place where I physically couldn't coach any more people and I didn't have any more time. I was running out of hours in a day. So I had to create a coaching firm. So I created the coaching firm and now got multiple coaches working for us. And I spent the last 2 years, if you like, treating my business as my number one client. And so I'm going to get to the stage by December this year where I've got a choice to make. And that choice could be, I could walk away if I wanted to completely. Yeah. Now, going back to your question, what's stopping me from walking away? And the first thing that comes into my mind is my clients. That's the number one thing why I will always be a coach to the day I die, because my purpose goes back to that again. My purpose is, I promised my coach that I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it, and I've got clients that should be paying me 10 times more than they do. And I've got other clients that, in other all sorts of shapes and sizes. I'd always be their client. I'd always be their coach for life. And that doesn't come with a pound sign in front or after it. That just comes as, that's me, that's what I do. And I'm really lucky, labouring under correct knowledge, to be able to create a business that can allow me to do that. And this January, when I go through my goals with the Jim Rohn book, is going to be a really interesting one of how it all starts to shift, because it will just be about making sure that my clients are all right, knowing that my coaching business is now starting to help hundreds and hundreds of people all over the place without me.
There's a reason that when we were thinking about the what happens next model, purpose and values sit square in the middle. And the reason being is because if we're not clear about what our life's about and what we want to achieve, we've got clients with loads of money, but directionless. It's the same as what you said earlier on about the 25-year-old with loads of money, but just doesn't know what the next step is. It goes back to knowing who you are and knowing the impact you want to make on the world. And they're difficult questions, and a lot of people choose not to answer them. But I think in periods of reflection and change, it's a really important question to ask, and certainly one that I try and sometimes fail, but sometimes succeed to do with my life on a regular basis.
You just said there, mate, it's acceptance that progress is always far more important than perfection.
Yeah. One of the books that I love is called Design Your Life by Bill Burnett. And he talks about the importance of and he effectively is like a design guy, he's like an engineer. And he says there's design thinking can really be applied to our lives. And one of the things that engineers do really well is they experiment. They try little stuff and go, oh, that didn't work, or I didn't enjoy that. I'm not doing that anymore, but here's the bits that do. And that getting over ourselves in terms of doing those little experiments and seeing what works and what doesn't, I think is key. One of the things that I know that I'm really lucky to do, and I hope you see this too, is learn from clients, right? Like, I get the chance to sit down with people who are like in different aspects of their lives and go, I'm curious about that. Tell me a bit more about that. So I can learn. You know what I learned yesterday from a client? I learned that the insurance that I paid when I went to Romania recently, I didn't need to pay, because apparently there's this thing called UK excess that you can buy in the UK for like £2, and it cost me €100 when I went away. So it can be really practical stuff, but it also can be like life-changing stuff and different perspectives that allow me to think differently. What have you learned from clients over the past few years that have impacted your life?
So the step before that, the biggest learning around that subject is being vulnerable in your life.
Yeah.
So when I was one of the global training coaches up until a couple of years ago, and people were, they've done all this most successful stuff, and they've achieved loads of stuff with their life, and they now want to become a coach to give it back, and be part of something different, and all the stuff we've just spoken about. And when they ask me and say, what's one key bit of advice, I generally always come to that: be vulnerable. Don't be the expert in your room.
Yeah.
And hold on a minute, I've become a coach because I've learned all this stuff for 40 years. I want to share it with someone else. Just be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And the more vulnerable that we can be, the more honest we can be with ourselves, the more honest we can be with our communication with the people the other side of the table. And by being vulnerable, people naturally want to help.
Yeah.
It makes them feel good. So you taught me that by me reading your book, The Kindness Project, and naturally, we look at all this crap on the TV, and it's everyone's killing and stabbing each other and blowing everybody up, and the world is a real horrible place. No, it's not. It's not. It really isn't. And I'm lucky. I've got I don't know, 70-something odd different types of clients. And I'm very lucky that as long as I turn up in the right way. And I'm a great believer of how to win friends and influence people, make them feel important, safe, and happy. By doing that and being vulnerable, I'm always learning. And life learning, is real learning. And I struggle, I run a book club, as you know, and you come along to it. But one of my key struggles is when I come out, I hated school. There wasn't one, apart from playing rugby, there wasn't one thing at school I liked, not at all. And so for me to reignite myself with learning, true learning, the best way that I learn is by listening and listening to people like you, Chris.
Well, that's not true, is it? That's because
it is true. It really is true. And guys, just for people that are on here that perhaps aren't clients of Chris's, but I know I made a joke of it last week, but Chris gave me some phenomenal advice. He didn't even realise it about 18 months ago. And then I come back after doing what he suggested, and I feel absolutely privileged now that I'm allowed to become a client. So I'm going to become a client of Chris's soon.
Well, yeah. Look, before you say you're privileged, let's start working together first. You might feel differently, but
seriously, Chris, it is a privilege. But more importantly, it's because of the way you approach every subject and every person. And which is and vulnerable might be a big word, but I use it for impact.
Yeah, you're right.
Because I turn up like that, my ears are always open, always open.
Yeah, you're right. And one of my big things, one of my big philosophies is we need to be a bit kinder to ourselves in that regard and admit that we all make mistakes. Let's celebrate making mistakes. Let's not do it on purpose, but let's celebrate making mistakes and try to learn from them. And I think I shared in the book, I think it's the biggest mistake I ever made. And if you haven't read the Kindness Project book, let me know and I'll get a copy sent out to you in exchange for a donation to a charity. Is I booked for me and my dad. I booked a hotel in the completely wrong country, and it's if somebody like me who luckily is trusted with looking after people's life savings could do that, we could all make mistakes as long as we learn from it. I think. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Loads of insight today. Really enjoyed it. If people want to find out a bit more about you, where can they do that?
So for me, obviously the LinkedIn and all the different platforms, Action Coach Central is our website. We don't bite. I built a whole business on giving people value, and my philosophy: if I give enough people value, I get everything back in return. So there's nothing apart from a nice cup of coffee and a decent set of ears. I don't know a bit rugby-fied, but a decent set.
And a biscuit potentially. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you've got any biscuits or.
I'm sure I have, but I suppose if you don't mind me, obviously I've been a coach now for many years, and if I didn't ask a question, Chris, I wouldn't be doing my job properly. So, just one sentence around why you're doing this right now in your life, if you wouldn't mind sharing with your audience.
Yeah. So the reason that What Happens Next exists is because I know how difficult it is to manage that change. As I say, we are lucky enough to work with people who have accumulated wealth through hard work in their life, and we help them make sure that money is protected and looked after. But it's not enough to live a life full of happiness and well-being. The money solves a problem, but actually looking at life in a bit more of a holistic way is the way that what we want to explore and what happens next. And the interesting thing for me, Mark, is my purpose and values is do well, do good. So one of the things that's really important to me, by sharing these conversations, by sharing different insights, by looking at how other people see the world and learning from those experiences. If one person emails me and says that was a really useful conversation, that's job done. I've been lucky enough, and you were thankful that you mentioned the Kindness Project earlier, to get involved in the hobbies that hopefully have a positive impact in the world. And my aim is that what happens next is another one of those. So yes, it might generate commercial success. Yes, it might do all that. But the purpose of values bit is that we do a bit of good by helping people understand that they're not alone. We all struggle with making change, and by learning in that process. I could argue in a really selfish way that I'm 46, so I'm doing it for me in 10 years' time. And there's part of it, but actually I think we can have a lot of value by having really good conversations. And thank
Chris,
you.
I would say to you, don't argue, just accept. And when we all get on the plane to go on our hollybobs or whatever we're doing, there's always a part in the setup that says, if we get into difficulty, the oxygen mask falls down, always put it on you first before you put it on anybody else.
Yeah.
So please, Chris, keep doing what you're doing, because that's helping everybody else. And more importantly, it's helping you.
I really hope you enjoyed that interview. And I know that podcasts are brilliant because when you're on the go, you can listen wherever you want. However, if you've got a few minutes, and like me, you're a bit more of a visual learner, you might want to visit our YouTube channel at What Happens Next Live. There'll be a link in the comments as well so that you can find us. And what I really appreciate you doing, we've got all the interviews on there, all the interviews you're listening to right there on there. But what we've also done is recorded exclusive content specifically for the YouTube channel that you can watch and get more insights into the next stage of your life and navigating it successfully. I'd ask while you're there, if you can, like the videos you like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us help more people. Thank you. So that was the interview. I'd love to know your top 3 takeaways, what you've learnt from Marc's experiences, and the elements you want to think more about when you're thinking about what happens next in your life. I'd love for you to let me know what those 1 or 3 incremental improvements you're going to make to your life are. Simply email me at hello@whathappensnext.life. I'd love to know what you think, and I'd love to know some feedback on the podcast. Are you enjoying it? What are you getting the most out of it? And what guests should we have on, more importantly? What guests should we have on that are going to give you real insight give our audience, including you, real insight into the next chapter of all of our lives? That's it for this week. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you on the podcast soon.